Yo, what's up, guys? We have the balance patch preview over here, and therefore we're gonna do a balance patch review. So let's see if they actually hit hard or they're not going anywhere. So it's funny enough, we were actually talking about units that could get a speed just in the base stats, and they did do it for the druids, so that's really good for a well, Tyrannies didn't really need it, I would say. Abellio didn't really need it that much, but mainly for the LNDs, the Valantis and the Pater become a lot easier to rune on their Despair and a lot easier to rune on Violent, whereas otherwise you could go for Swift, but it gets a little bit awkward. So I think for those two, it's pretty good. I'm thinking Desert Queens. Nephthys becomes easier to rune because Nephthys gets a +2. Yeah, Nephthys becomes easier to rune. The others, Bastet's a little bit easier. Segment. Wait, Segment is gonna get. Wait, Segment has like 114 right now, right? Segment's gonna be 116. Ah, well, that's something. Well, that's actually not that bad. I think Segment kind of does deserve that. Fairy Kings. Who is interesting on that? Wait, Ganymede is going to be. What speed is Ganymede at? Ganymede is going to be 150, 116 as well then. I might make Ganymede a little bit more interesting for a random Swift set. We talk about that. It's actually not that bad. Because Ganymede in the end already has the Speed Awakening. Bison's not bad for Greg, to be honest. Like, Greg is definitely one of those units, if it has a little bit more speed, it will do better in the first place. Besides that, Gurkha doesn't matter. Cigar was kind of out of meta, but it helps, that's for sure. Carnal, same thing. Yeah, okay. And then for the 4 stars, can't really see any of the 4 stars being used all too much in the first place. So those I don't really see too much value of being used. Skogel, not really. Ella, yeah, Ella, Nora. Nora might actually be Maya, a little bit. So yeah, I think that in here, I kind of like what they're doing over here. It's nothing too crazy, but I kind of like what they're doing here. And this segment, most of the time, wasn't really in there. I do kind of like it that the Grim Reapers get it as well, because the Grim Reapers, like, legit 91. What kind of ass is that shit? Holy hell. That was just terrible. Okay, so let's see what we have over here for buffs and nerfs all together. First of all, we have the Zenitsu Wind, and he was going for a 50% heal, now goes for a 30% heal. To be honest, I don't really think that that was like a pain point issue unit where it was too strong and really needed a nerf, but then again, I'm not necessarily full against it as well. So, fine for me, but I don't really think he needed that much of a nerf. Lydia Reflex for 30% or 40%. You're still not reflecting AoE, which Alexandra does, and that's kind of the thing that I think you need to become anything towards useful. So don't really see this Lydia being good right now. It's still the same. It doesn't really change much. We have the Shadowcaster Water Minato recovers 50% of the damage dealt when counter-attacking. So you get a bolt-in Vampire. So with the Vampire, you vamp pretty hard. But you could go for a choice to make a violent set on it now as well. It's not that bad, but it's also nothing really special. Okay, then we have Ritsu, Despair Minato. Yeah, no. So, wall of text into a little bit less wall of text, but we have Shadow Trap target while exploring the boss. After you attack on your turn, you absorb the attack bar by 50% if the target with the Shadow Trap gains a turn. Wait. And you will gain the turn. What? If the target with the Shadow Trap gains a turn. Ah, yeah, that's for this part. I read it's like the absorb is part of you taking a turn. It's like, how the fuck are you gonna absorb 50% attack bar when you already take a turn? Sorry, it's early for me. So, the moment after your attack on your turn and absorb 50% of the target's attack bar. Okay. Wait, but I'm not sure. It's early, so bear with me. You can now apply it to 2 targets. That's already really good. I kind of like that part. But the absorb part, so after attacking on your turn and absorb 50% of the targets. Okay. I guess then just whatever you attack, you put in the lock, but you no longer have like the slow thing. That was weird. That's good. I like that they removed the slow part because that shit was just weird and didn't make any sense. Now you're just stealing 50% attack bar, but if you get the skill back, you can at least apply it to another target as well. Loki, I kind of like that. I kind of like that. I think that Ritsu can become a little bit more interesting. That's definitely something that um, could be something where he has more benefit from it. He can still miss it. That is definitely an issue right there. But then again, any unit can kind of miss their skill. So I would say Ritsu buff W. I don't think it's a bad buff. Then we have the Shun, and rather than removes, it steals. Um, we notice with the Fire Magnemy that stealing is a lot stronger, so I think that that is a fine buff to it too. Still have just the issue if it doesn't land it, but that's already a little bit better. Then we have the Wu Yong. Well, actually, unit I have, so few units I have getting buffed. Well, first of all, we have the Dagger of Garage. The damage increases as your HP decreases, now increases. Makes a lot more sense for nuking. I really wonder how much damage improvement there will be on that S3. Because the S3, I actually told them just, or I would say, remove them right, or like remove that whole skill because it absolutely adds nothing to the kit. But attack bar increase for 20% to 25%, that's pretty nice because if you're pairing this up with, let's say, a Lucian or a Julie, what's pretty common, now you can at least put more stats to them and less speed, which is definitely pretty nice as well. Then we have the Pure Vanilla Cookie Dark, absorbs 25%. And 25% is the point where you do get a full attack bar if you hit that on everyone, which is pretty nice. The big issue is that they should have removed her slow, because the slow actually makes it where you get really much of an A-gang issue. Also, the Pure Vanilla Cookie, well, the thing is, you can't really give Pure Vanilla Cookie extra speed, because then you would give to Adriana, and Adriana would be too OP. But she really has the issue of being too slow and therefore not being worth on Vio. You have to make her swift, so that's kind of a thing that's kind of awkward for her. But in the end, decent buff, I would say. We have the Devil Maiden Wind. Layla. Interesting to see Layla getting a buff. But then again, Layla has so much issues from the Nobara that I don't see any buff making her good, but sure. Increase your attack bar by 20% whenever harmful effect is granted to the enemy. Damn, that means that if you do a Nephthys S2, this thing has like 300% attack bar or some shit. That's a lot of turns that Layla can take, though. That might make her pretty interesting. Wu Young boost also goes to 25. Yeah, I did see that part. But yeah, Layla gets a lot of attack bar that way. Might be interesting, but once again, as mentioned, Nobaras, Junos, they do really tend to mess with you. But I think it might make a little bit of a comeback right there. Then we have next of Dark Itadori, which was a really ass unit. And I think that this is his third skill, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is his third skill. He gets an attack buff before attacking right now. So he's a Han, but getting attack buff before. Okay, I kind of dig that. That's not a bad way. Like in the end, he needs to do a certain percentage of damage to get his skill back. With an attack buff, it becomes a lot easier to get to that threshold. So I kind of like that. I don't think he will be crazy good, but I kind of like that idea. Then we have the Water Nobara, and we've removed the chance for block harmful effect for 2 turns for blocking harmful effect. Or wait, yeah, blocking for 50%, and then also suppression for 50%. Okay, well, it is AoE suppression. That's not a bad thing. Like, AoE suppression is definitely not a bad debuff. I'm not sure if it's really a great buff, but sure. Then we have the... I think these are all of the 4 stars. Yeah, pretty sure that these are all of the 4 stars on the Nezuko family. And we have a added effect, block harmful effects removed for 2 turns silences. Okay, they changed it. So it was a harmful effect removal, and now it is a silence. I don't think that any of those 4 stars were actually properly used, so I'm not really sure if that changes anything that much. Maybe on the light one, she has like the chance to solo things, kind of, but not really. So I don't know. Then we have the Water Inosuke, which is the one with the speed lead. That is a 28 speed lead, right? Yeah, it should be, because it's the same as the Magni. Decrease attack bar of the enemy by 25%. Still awkward for the part where you do take an additional turn and you do a skill 1 and a skill 2, and those skills are pretty ass on this unit altogether. But decreasing the attack bar after stripping is never bad, so I can kind of see that work. Fire Tanjiro, we go for a bunch of that stuff. Absorb the attack bar by 50%. Okay, and disturb recovery for 2 turns. That is the third skill, right? Yeah, I guess. I guess that is an okay buff. It's not really crazy, but it's okay. Then we have the Light Tanjiro. This gets weird, though. Because the Sun Hollow Dragon is the third skill. The Sun Hollow Dragon, no, I don't like that buff at all. Like, provokes all enemies for 1 turn with each hit. Well, do you have multiple hits? I don't know, but this is kind of weird because the moment you use your S3, you don't gain attack bar from being hit. You need to do your S2 to gain attack bar from being hit. So you need to have your S2 on cooldown and your S3 on cooldown, if I understand it correctly, for this provoke to actually start making sense. So now he is a single target damage dealer nuker that kills itself by provoking everything towards him. It's kind of weird, though. I'm not really liking that. If they changed that the third skill actually gave you the additional A to B for being hit, then it would make sense, because then you could rotate back and forth in skills. But in this case, doesn't he heal? Yeah, he heals when he gets a turn. But the thing is, this provoke is not helping you getting a turn. So that's the weird part. Like, if this provoke was helping you getting a turn, it would make sense. But this provoke is helping you to die. Oh, he heals when he gets hit? Oh, I thought it was on turn. Heals when on hit. Maybe in that case, it's okay, as long as you don't get hit by a heal block. But you have to bowl it a bit more tanky in the first place, though. So he heals 10% when he gets hit. Okay. Better bruiser. Okay, better bruiser. Thanks for the info. But better bruiser that way, I guess. Still not crazy, though. The Water Zenitsu, that's also 5-star, and now it's 35% attack bar when you attack an L or an enemy under inability effects. Nothing crazy, still not a big fan of this unit, but kind of okay-ish, I guess. Now we actually have the Light Series, my most recent LD5. I did a video on it yesterday, and the skill 1 hit up to a 400k with everything max stacked and shit. But we're actually going to be making a stack of 50 upwards towards 250. 250 speed is an insane amount of speed. But her biggest issue was not that the scaling was too low. Like, the 400 and the 200, in my opinion, are totally fine. As long as she gets something for more survivability or getting a chance to take more turns. Because in most cases, she just doesn't really get the chance to get that 4-stack series would be the current 5. So 3 extra stack. True, but the thing is, you didn't really get towards that many stacks in the first place. She kind of needs like the Zeratul treatment where she gets a little bit healing in her turns or anything like that. But I might give her another try on like a vampire set or something. Like, I think that this kind of does ask for like a vampire set to be decent. Someone's asking about the Ritsu. I think it's a decent buff, yeah. We go for the Light Triss. Continuous damage for 2 turns. You have 2 continuous damage for 1 turn whenever you attack an enemy. Technically, it's better. That's just always better. Like, if you go for fast dodging, this part is always better, so that's a nice buff. I would have actually liked to see a little bit more to Groa, because Groa kind of lost her identity for being best in slot for the dot team towards the Lamila, Amber, and Trix, just simply doing that whole job way better. But she doesn't fit with a Lamila, Amber, Trix, because they don't really provide dots, they just provide debuffs, and it's damage by debuff. So, for that case, I think that Groa deserved a little bit more. Wait, we have a Hathor buff. We have Delayed Promises. Prevents the enemy from moving harmful effects for 1 turn. Is increasing their cooldown for 1 turn. Wait, is that AoE? Yeah, I think that's AoE, right? That's not on the one target that you do hit on. That's okay. I still don't really think that Hathor would come back into meta. Like, before, people are saying like, oh, Genny is buffed, Hathor is buffed, we're gonna go crazy on that kind of sleep shit again. I highly doubt that. It's the targeted one. The targeted one, then it's really not that special. Sure, you deny like pretty much 4 turns, but the meta just doesn't allow it. Currently, you have a Wind Monkey that starts stacking way too much. Juno with the speed buff is way too good. Even the Nobara would start fucking it up. Like, there's way too many units that fuck up this thing right now. I think it's just kind of a buff with TOA. Like, if you tend to use a Hathor in TOA and you just bore them to death, then that kind of helps you out. On the OG, we have increase your skill activation by 20% to 40% whenever you attack a suppressed enemy. Isn't that the activation rate of your armor break, mainly? Does that make sense? I'm not sure if I'm reading that correctly. So you just have a higher chance of landing your armor break whenever you hit anything that's already suppressed. Not bad. I think people will complain about the Geo buff because the unit is just annoying, but don't think it's that crazy. It's not the damage increase that's going up, right? Because she also does have a damage increase of 20% the moment you hit a suppressed unit. But to be honest, I didn't even know the fucking skill activation rate went up as well. So activation, so more chance of landing armor breaks, but you first have to strip and land the suppression. Not that bad. Not that bad. It's a little bit annoying, but okay. This one is actually pretty interesting. I did already see this. Joe Gunn can be countered right now, but you do gain a attack bar increase by 15% the moment you use your skill 3. So that actually makes him a really interesting unit for teaming up with bombers or something like that. Because you have a strip attack buff boost. I kind of like that. It's just 15%. It's nothing crazy. But I could see that unit also becoming more of a siege defense with like Sierra Artmaster +1. I think that is pretty good in general. So yeah, I kind of like that change. Nothing too crazy, but I kind of like it. Then the next one is we have a selected threat state becomes a longer threat state for the Artmaster. It's not bad as well for Mugul because in the end, if you have a 3-turn threat state, the moment that they're finally out of that 3-turn threat state, you pretty much almost already have it again, which is not bad. I kind of like that. Then we have the Mugwang, the Dokubi Lord Fire. This unit is really a scam, and the reason that this unit is a scam is because you're lowering the max HP, but the dot remains 5%. So if you have, let's say, a monster of 10k HP, a dot is 5%, 500 damage. But the moment you drop down all of his HP to 5k, your dot is going to be 250 damage. So you feel like you do a lot of damage to him, but you're just lowering your dot damage in sense. And because of that, this unit is kind of a scam where I don't really like it that much. Inflicts continuous damage for 3 turns right now. Still takes you a long time to actually kill anything. It is good for the sense of destroying someone's HP in Siege. For arena offense, I would highly not recommend using this thing. Maybe if you have really bad rune quality and therefore you can win easier. But yeah, he does have increased damage on destroyed. Well, the thing is, you need increased damage, you need an armor break. And you need crit rate and crit damage. But you're not going to put crit damage to it, most likely, right? So yeah, I don't really like this unit altogether. With the change, it is a little bit better for sure, but I think he's still kind of like a thing where I would rather just throw a Seth at it, or a Nora, or a Rika, or a Bloodja, or any of those things, rather than the Dokubi Lord. We have Coco in here. Changed effect. So we used to have a 1 sphere for counterattack and recover you. And now we recover by the damage dealt, but it does not say if it uses 1 sphere. That's the weird part. So does it maybe counter without using a sphere? That would make Coco really fucking strong, though. I am not 100% sure about that, because I would assume that by how it is stated, Coco doesn't lose a stack of a sphere. And that's the thing, like how you were normally countering Coco. You hit it once or twice, and therefore you only had like 3 stacks left, and you lowered the damage output by a lot. But yeah, since this part is included, like uses 1 sphere, and it's not included in there, that is definitely something that caught my eyes. Like, okay, I gotta be checking that, because in the end, and 10% HP recovery is probably more than the recovery by the counter attack. Because the counter attack, this is nowhere near going to do 10k HP. Like, no way. 1 stack does not do 10k HP. Not even remotely close. Well, it is to the sense where 10k HP is based off your HP, and this is based off how much damage you do. So therefore, percentage-wise, it is very different. Because now you're scaling your healing out of your damage, which is decent, though. That could be the buff. But if it's not using a stack as being the buff, that would be really nasty. So let's see how that is. We also have the Momo in there. Damage cannot be increased above 50% or to 70% at once. Wait, that is for the stacking of the passive, right? Not sure if I really like that. Not a big Momo fan in the first place. So let's see. Then we have a bunch of Tomb Warriors, okay, or no warriors, Wardens. I never really use those, so to be honest, don't mind me. I don't even know their skills without that right now. So you can go full stacks in 3 attacks instead of 4. Okay, makes sense, I guess. Attacks all enemies to remove one beneficial effect. Ah, yeah, this is the one that I was thinking like maybe on defense is good. So now it is a remove beneficial effect with a 70, and then decrease their defense with it. Okay. So wait, what is the real change? The real change is just this 50 to a 70, right? Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's just okay. High chance of stripping. You could have written that a little bit shorter rather than. I would like it where they just put like 50 over there in color, 70 over there in color, and don't let me read the whole fucking wall of text. But sure. Wind counter attack 50% to 100%. Yeah, that is a change you do need. 50% counters are ass. Still don't really think that this unit is crazy, but could do a thing. Coffin bash, cooldown decrease. Okay, not too bad, not too bad. Light one also does have the 10% to 15%. Ah, yeah, this skill is really weird. I barely even know what this shit does, but sure, I guess. And this one is then also when the terror shown on your ally's side recovers HP with 50. I think all of them, they could be siege viable. I'm not really sure yet if they're really crazy, but yeah, I guess. Then we have a bunch of pirate captains. Interesting to see pirate captain. So this is the wind pirate captain third skill. Increase your attack by 30% if it lands critical hits. Yeah, okay. For 35% damage for each harmful effect you hit. Ooh, that makes you perfect AI. That does make you perfect AI. And it makes you for the water R5. Arguably even for giants. I could see this being used in giants. I will check the damage multiplier of this in a second. His animation is way too long. No, its animation is not that bad because he pretty much, his skill 3 is a combination of a skill 1 into a skill 2. So it is not that bad. It's just like a skill 1 and skill 2 in one animation. It's just legit that kind of lazy ass, but not too bad. Then we also have skill 2 giving a branding. Ooh, that's pretty interesting. Skill 2. Okay, so the wind one definitely becomes a decent unit with that. Brand might help a little bit if you want to use the brick into the what's it called, Steel Fortress. It's not that bad, not that bad. Throws 50. Yeah, in the end, sure that this is probably low. I have to check what the damage multiplier is on this compared to, let's say, a crow or something. So that will definitely make or break this one because 35 is not the craziest amount. If you compare that, let's say, especially to a brandy up, which is 40% for not being able to stun and then 50% per. Then we have we have that already. Espresso cookie, we have a more chance of freezing and stunning. Makes sense, especially for the water one, I guess. The others, still not really a big fan. We have the dark one. Each hit has a chance to decrease the attack bar by 20%. Not the worst, but it's not really crazy neither. Let's see. Then we have takes an issue where the damage increase effect did not activate. Okay. Is there anything that's kind of a bug in here? Takes an issue where the icon of the passive with the damage increase for the okay. Yeah, none of these really seem too crazy to my sense. Yeah, also 0 nerfs. So we have no Fire Megami nerf that people have been asking for. Some people did already mention as well as like, okay, this would have been a lot better if there was a pre-ban in RTA and then a pre-ban before you go into the match, because then you could just start removing units that are really annoying. I am fairly surprised that there is no slight tweak to the Twin Angels. The whole family of Twin Angels are sitting at like insane pick rates, insane win rates. I'm so surprised about that. All of the LDs that are good, still good. Zeratul being good, Tian Lang being good, Gianna being good, you name it. Interesting one on that. I would say also no awakening changes, no leader changes. I would say I do like this part. This part is pretty W. I really do like that. There are a few buffs on a few LDs that I think are pretty decent. Ritsu might become decent. The Wooyoung is not a bad change. I think the Dark Yuji becomes decent in his own respect. Light Siri might have a thing or two. I think that Joe Gunn is a pretty decent buff. I would have to check how the Coco buff works, but might be a decent buff as well. But overall, I think there is a decent buffs here and there, but also nothing really too crazy. Oh wait, there is one nerf. There is the Wind Zenitsu nerf, which I don't think was that crazy at all. So that's, yeah, I don't know. Polar Queen nerf, kind of bad as well. Once again, the timing of the balance patch makes it where they could have done a lot of shits, and they did not really take that opportunity, and that is just once again highly disappointed. This is also the balance patch that they did talk about in the developer talk, where they spoke for hours on end with us, and we mostly talked about balance patches. And this is the result, which I would also say is somewhat disappointing. I expected more. That's definitely a thing that maybe we put up the hype too much because they said a lot during the talk. But I think they had to deliver towards that hype because in the end, sure, they did more than they did in most balance patches. But there is there's no leader skill changes. There is no awakening changes. There is this part that's added. I kind of like it. PvE did get addressed a little bit, but legit in one unit. There's still no perfect AI buff blocker for Steel Fortress. Siege had very minimum changes as well, because most of the time you want to add some new leader skill for that as well. Maybe the Tomb Wardens are going to do a little bit in Siege. Maybe the Jogun is going to do a little bit in Siege, but besides that, I think it's pretty mediocre. RTA, they were too scared to nerf any of the good units, which is kind of lame as well, I guess. Siege for RTA wise, which unit might see a little bit more usage? I think it's the Shadowcaster, and that is maybe about it. I think that I would rate this balance patch definitely better than the previous one in value for like just a one-to-one trade. But if we look at the timing, we have no SWC, we have no Legend tournament, we have no Siege tournament, we have nothing going on. They had the perfect moment. They were preparing for this balance patch for like 3 months pretty much. And in the end, they did this. I expected at least 1.5 times as much as this. Maybe 2 times. I'm somewhat disappointed. I give this a 5 out of 10. I think a 5 out of 10 is fair. And yeah, like sure, there's some changes. Actually, a few of my LDs are that, but this looks more of like an average balance patch plus like 10% extra. That's what it looks like. Also, the Wind Zenitsu nerf, like the only nerf that is addressed on the unit I don't think had to be nerfed. That's also kind of a thing. So yeah, this is, I expected more. I feel disappointed. And that is also one of those things. There are a few competitor games being released pretty soon. Having a mediocre balance patch, whereas everyone was focusing on looking at your balance patch, is a really bad timing. And once again, I'm disappointed mainly because we did a developer talk. We talked for hours on end, and we talked a lot about balance patching, and they come up with this. Yeah, I don't know, man. I expected a lot more. That's just the main thing I have. Sure, there are some good changes here and there. Absolutely. There's some things that I think is like, why? But in the end, it's just not that much. Like, if you spend 3 months getting to this, it kind of gets to the point like you're never going to do a proper balance patch. Like, if you can't do it now, I never see a chance where you can do it properly. And that is my biggest disappointment, because if they made a good balance patch right now, we had that hope for the future that Comtois is able to do proper balance patches that makes us happy. And the thing is, if you don't do it right now and you didn't do it, it pretty much just shows that you're never able to do a proper balance patch. And that part is just highly disappointing. And that is just a really bad show, not necessarily for this balance patch, but it is a really bad show for the future of the game. And I think that is where they made a really big mistake of not putting more effort. And that makes actually the disappointment even bigger. And for the video, I'm going to leave it at that.